Okay, let's go over to Session View now and get a little bit more comfortable with producing music in Session View. Okay, so I'm gonna hit the Tab key, and now we're over in Session View. Now, remember what I told you before about one of the most important concepts with Session View, and that is that Session View and Arrangement View have different like content areas, but they share a mixer. Okay, so that means that all of these tracks have the instruments on them. Like this one has the strings, right? And this one has this synthesizer. This one has the piano and the other synth and the other synth. Okay, they don't have any of the clips, but they have all of the settings that we had over in Arrangement View. Now, just because they don't have the clips in Session View doesn't mean that we can't get them. Okay, there's an easy way to go get them. We'll do that in just a second. But I want to put this in your head first. As you're working in Session View, I want you to be thinking about each one of these little clips, slots. Okay, imagine these are each a little spinning record. Okay, so you've got all these little spinning records going all over the place. Okay, now you want to do two things with those. First is you want to craft what that spinning record is and making sure that it is exactly what you want. Then you're going to drop the needle on it whenever you're ready. So we're going to have all these little spinning records and we're going to like pull them in as we want them in. Okay? So let's do it. Okay, so let's go get some clips from the Arrangement View. Okay? There's a few different ways you can do this. Obviously, we can just pull things in again if we wanted to. Like that drum loop, I could do search for synthwave in all, sample piano keys, and there it is, okay? But remember, I kind of cut it up and changed it, so it would be easier just to go get it. So here's what I'm gonna do. I'm gonna hit Tab. Here's that loop. Now I could hit copy. Okay, so Command C, copy, go over to Arrangement View, go to the same track and type Command V for paste. And then we're gonna bring it over. Okay, that's one way. Another way is just to click and drag, like we're gonna move it. And then while I'm holding it down, don't let go yet, press Tab with your other hand. And now I still have it, okay? And I can drop it in right there, okay? It's all the same. Same thing with MIDI clips. I can grab this MIDI clip, hold on to it, hit Tab, and I can put it on a MIDI track. Now remember, your instruments are on these tracks, so it's gonna matter where you put it. But there it is. I can play it. If I want to stop it, I'm going to hit this stop at the bottom here. Okay. Let's actually talk about the playing and stopping of clips for a minute. Okay, this deserves special attention because it can be confusing and it can be a little frustrating. So, if I play a clip, okay, I hit the little play button on a clip. Okay, now to stop it, I can press spacebar if I want. Now, this can actually be kind of problematic because sometimes you might stop something and other things will keep going. See, I just started this clip and my drum clip just took off. Okay, so to stop this drum clip, I'm gonna hit that, but now this one's still going. Okay, so I'm gonna go down here and hit stop down there. So here's what you should keep in mind. Spacebar will stop everything. Okay. But when you restart, when you start up again, it's going to start all the clips that were just playing. It's going to start those playing again too. If you want to stop a clip individually, you can hit the stop button underneath it, or actually any stop button in that track. Or if you don't see one, you always have one down here at the bottom. Or if you just want to stop everything, there is a kind of master stop everything button, and it's right here. Okay, that's just going to hit all your big stop buttons. So stop all clips. And of course, you can always hit the big stop button at the top too, but that will function the same way that your space bar functions. So just keep that in mind. Those are our kind of main stop buttons. They're kind of peppered all over the place in a way. It's kind of strange, but you'll get used to it. Trust me. Okay, next let's talk about the behavior of the clip slot grid here. Okay, so here's how the clip slot grid works. Okay, so this whole thing is called the clip slot grid. We can play one file at a time vertically. Okay, so only one file per track can be playing. Let me demonstrate by loading up a few different drum loops. Sure. Sure, maybe one more. Sure. Okay. So if I want to play this drum loop, I can hit play, and that's great. If I want to play another one, I'm going to hit play right underneath it. Okay. Now it's going to have warped all of these, so they're all going to be in time. That one was like kind of double time, but whatever. And they're always going to launch on the downbeat or on the global launch setting. That means that there is a setting called global launch where you can say only launch on a downbeat every bar. Okay, so if I click this one and then I click another one, you see it blink for just a second. It's waiting for the next downbeat, and it's only going to launch on a downbeat. That makes it so you can kind of navigate through the clip slot grid all you want, and it's going to keep you from like launching in a weird spot and losing the beat. It's always going to launch on the downbeat. It's going to keep you tight on in the groove. Now, if you want to change that, this little setting right here, this one bar, that is your global launch setting. Okay, so we can say only launch something new every 8 bars. If you're doing like a really long set and it's complicated and you're launching clips all over the place, maybe you just want to chill for a part of it and say every 8 bars is when something new is going to happen. Keep it easy. Or you can say none, and then things will launch right when you click them. Dangerous. Or you can say, you know, every quarter note, every 8th note, whatever you want. Okay, I'm going to leave it on 1 bar. Okay, so only one of these can happen at a time. I can't play 2 at once in the same track. Okay? That's true for all tracks. But I can play as many as I want horizontally. Okay? So let's say, let's say I want to play this clip, this drum groove, and this chord progression. It's cool. Now I want to switch to a different drum groove. Another one. Kind of dig that. And let's say there's more stuff here. Here's our strings. Okay. So maybe now I want to add in this clip, this synth, maybe the strings. This isn't going to work. is our baseline. I put the chord progression in it. So I can move around and launch as many as I want horizontally, but only one at a time vertically, okay? Now on top of that, if I want to launch a whole bunch of stuff all at once, like let's say I want to launch everything in this row, okay? The row is called a scene, okay? And I can launch the whole row all at once by going right here. Okay, and go to a different scene. Okay, now notice that when I launch, if I launch this first scene and then I go to the second one, it's gonna launch these stop buttons, right? So it's going to stop anything that doesn't have a clip going in it. It's gonna hit the stop button. If you want it to not do that, you can select some stuff and say Command E. That's going to hide the stop button so that this one will now continue playing as I launch scenes. See how this one just keeps going? Because there's no stop button. No one told it to stop, so it's going to keep going. Now, this is how people very often navigate session view. They go to the scene and they change the name. So let's do Command R and say intro, Command R, verse, chorus, verse 2, whatever. Okay, so now we go to the verse. Sure, we launch the verse right there. Chorus, verse 2. So launching by scene, which is the row, is how it's often done. But again, don't forget, you can do things however you want. Okay, let's move on. Okay, let's talk about setting up one of these clips so that it is exactly how we want it for our imaginary little spinning record. Okay, let's go back to this clip. So I'm just going to stop everything and hit play here. Okay, this is familiar to us. We've already messed with this. Okay, so first, let's make sure this loops. So a lot of things in session view by default will loop. But because we pulled this over and it wasn't set up to loop in arrangement view, it's not set up to loop here. So in order to get it to loop, all we have to do is turn on loop down here. Okay, now it's going to loop. I'm going to turn it down a little bit so I can talk over it. So we have some of our same settings here. We have warp settings, pitch, volume. This should be familiar to us by now. We also have these launch settings. We can do some special things with how we launch this clip. We can say, use our global launch setting. That's what this global thing means here. Legato means that if we launch another clip, it's going to pick up where this one left off. We can adjust the velocity, and we can set a different type of launch method. Trigger means we're going to hit it and it's going to start going. Gate means while I'm holding the play button down, it's going to play, but as soon as I let go, it's going to stop playing. Toggle means I'm going to press it once to start it playing and again to stop it playing. And I'm not sure how repeat is different than trigger just with a general loop, but okay, so what if I wanted this to loop only half as long? Okay, what if I wanted this to be just a 4-bar loop? Okay, all I have to do is find my loop brace, which is this, and pull it in to be half as long. Okay. Okay. Now, what if I want this to have a little fill? What if when I launch this, I want it to go ta-oom, ba, boom, ta, and then start on the downbeat, right? Here's what I can do. This little arrow right here, this means where is this going to start from when I launch it, okay? So 99% of the time we leave that at the beginning, but it doesn't have to be at the beginning. I could put it right here. Let's put it right here. No, I take that back. Let's put it right here. So now when I launch this, we're going to hear beat 4 and then beat 1. Or sorry, we're going to hear the 4th measure, and then it's going to go back to the 1st measure, and then it's going to loop throughout the whole thing. Okay, so when I launch it, watch what happens. Right? So that's a way to get a little fill in the beginning of it. Okay, I'm going to move this back to the beginning. So I can make my loop as short as I want. Here's just 1 bar. Sure. Extend it open. One thing you'll notice in session view is that we have this little pie right here. That's just kind of a visual cue to tell us when the beginning of the loop is coming around again. If I make it longer, now you can see it. So when you're performing and you're doing a bunch of stuff all at once on stage, these little pies are handy to tell you when the ending of the loop is going to come, and so that you're ready to do the next thing that you plan on doing. Okay, let's talk about setting up some strange loops, like a loop on beat 2. This is a good way to understand how session view actually works. I remember back when I was learning how to use session view, and somebody showed me this thing that I'm about to show you, and it just went click, and everything made sense about session view. So let's do it. So first, I'm going to find a kick sample. Sample 1 shot. I just want to thump. Okay, not bad. Let's do this one. Okay, I'm going to throw that somewhere. How about right there? Okay, here's my kick. Okay, now that is a very short sample. If I loop that sample, that is basically useless. Okay, now I can't loop it right now because that sample isn't warped. I have to turn warping on to loop it. So if I loop it, it's just going to do this. Watch. That's not very useful to me. Okay, I want that to be in time. Okay, so I want that to be on a quarter note. Doom, 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 doom. Okay. So now in order for that to be a perfect quarter note, I have to make sure that the length of this loop is a perfect quarter note. And it's not. So let's make this loop longer. See, I can loop the empty space here. Now I can get here, and now this is a quarter note, 1 to 1.2. Okay, that is the first beat. Now if I launch this, now it's a quarter note. Okay, now this might be all you need. That's what's kind of cool about this, is that like if I have this clip going and I just want a pattern that is just like a solid kick, I just need 1 kick and set it to loop on the beat. Right? I don't need a whole loop here if it's just 1 note. Okay, so let me set this to loop. Okay, now, but what if I want it on every other note? Okay, that's easy enough. All I have to do is stretch this out, right? Because now it's going to go kick, nothing, kick, nothing. that kick, because the loop length is 2 beats, it is going to be perfectly on forever. I could let this play for 20 years and that is never going to fall off the beat. It's just going to be perfect. Okay, now what if I want to do the same thing, but I want the kick to be on beat 2 instead of beat 1? How do I do that? Think about it for a minute. To do this, I put silence on the back. So if I want this to be on beat 2, I need silence at the front. So watch this. What I'm going to do is I'm going to take my loop position. I'm going to type in -1. Okay, now I'm at a whole bar in the negative. That's not what I want. So I just want these 2 beats. Okay, here's 1 and here's -1. So we're going to move our start position back. Okay, and our end position forward. End position isn't really going to matter here, but I like to move it out of the loop brace just to be safe. Okay, so now we're going to start here at -1.4 and play 1. Now it's going to be on beat 2. Okay, so you can go negative. All right, so hopefully that kind of opened your mind as to what we can do here in Session View. So what about automation? You remember that in Arrangement View, we could draw a line. We could say, I want this to get louder over time, right? And we would say, start here, end here, and draw a little line using automation mode. We don't have automation mode here on Session View. We don't need it. So here's how we do automation in Session View. Let's go to a clip. Okay, we have 2 tabs up at the top of our clip view. We have sample and envelopes. Now we're going to go to envelopes here and we see automation and modulation. And here we see automation. Now, envelopes in this setting, envelope kind of means repeating automation, like automation that kind of comes back around over and over and over, which is what our automation will do here because it's looping. You'll see the term envelopes used a lot more in synthesis. So when we get into the heavier synthesis stuff, which we will be doing soon, that term will make more sense. For now, let's just think of it as a looping automation. So here we can automate something. We can say mixer track volume, sure. And we can say this is going to start really quiet and get really loud. If I make another point, cool. Now if I play this clip, okay, cool. Now, we'll come back to this modulation setting later. We don't need it right now. Just remember that anything you can automate is going to show up here. And remember that you can switch to a different automated parameter just by clicking on it. So here's our panning and our mixer. If I click on that, our automation goes to panning. Okay, so I can pan things around all I want. Now, what's tricky about this is that we have to remember that our automation is going to loop back. So in this case, what's going to happen is my panning is going to be right here, and then it's going to loop back and it's going to jump to down here. It's going to be like really kind of strange. Well, we're not going to hear it because of the volume automation. But the volume automation has the same problem, right? We ramp up and then we jump back down to nothing because it's looping. So we could avoid that by just making sure we start and end in the same place like that. Now it won't be so jerky, but it's not very interesting musically. But there is one other way we can kind of play with this idea, and it is through this button here, linked and unlinked. So let's go to a new video and talk about unlinked automation. Okay, this concept can be a little bit like quantum physics, kind of, in the way that it can mess with your head a little bit. But basically, here's the deal. What if I had, you've probably heard this before, where there's like a pattern that's happening in a track, and it like, there's a filter on it, and it slowly, that filter slowly opens up over like a long period of time, and it gives us this big energetic moment. Let's do that. So here's what I mean by filter. If I go to effects, we'll do this more later, but I'm going to go EQ8 on this track. I'm going to turn off everything except one band. Give it some resonance, and we'll do that. Okay, so what I want to automate here is this frequency. Okay, so I'm going to click on it. Then I'm going to go over to our clip view and make sure EQ8 frequency A is selected. Okay. So now what I can do is say it's closed and it's open. Okay. Here's what that's going to do. Okay. We'll talk about how to use EQs and what they're actually doing later. But what I want you to understand is that right now, this is cool that this is happening over the course of a loop of, 4 bars. That's cool. But what if I want it to happen over the course of 8 bars or 16 bars or 32 bars, right? I can't do that because my loop is only 4 bars. That's where this unlinked setting comes in. So I'm going to click this linked, say unlinked. Okay. Now we see this is the length of our loop. That's cool. But I can also say, length and make this way longer. Now you can imagine that clip is looping, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7 times. Let's make it 8 for good measure. So now I can say that parameter is going to go over 8 measures. Okay, so now the clip is gonna loop, and this automation is gonna start going, and then the clip is gonna loop again. The automation is gonna continue, and it's gonna continue over many cycles of the loop before it starts over again. Okay. So let's check it out. Go look at so now it's going very slow. So we're like halfway now. Maybe I shouldn't have made this so long. My panning automation is still in there, still jumping around, because the panning automation is still linked, right? So it's still a 1 bar loop of automation. So not everything has to be linked or unlinked. Okay, and then it closes up again. So this parameter is unlinked, but if I go back to mixer and my panning, this one is still linked. So it's going to repeat every cycle of the loop. Okay? So let me say this one more time. When we're unlinked, we are not bound to the length of the loop with our automation. Our automation can be as long as we want, but when we're linked, our automation can only span the length of one cycle of the loop. Let's look at that on our kick here. See, this is, I'm going to switch this back to being every 2 beats on the beat. Okay, now let's go here. Now our automation is gone. Now I'm going to say the length of this, we'll say, I don't know, long. So now I can change this over time. So these automation settings stay with the clip. So if I go to a new clip, even if it's on the same track, it doesn't have that automation. The automation, whether it's linked or unlinked, stays with the clip, not just on the track. Okay, let's move on. Okay, a couple more sort of utility things in Session View. What if we want to change the time and meter in Session View? We're going to do that in the scene launch, okay? We can say when I launch this scene, I want to change the tempo. And when I launch this scene, I want to change that tempo. Okay, here's how we do it. If you're in a clip, so we're going to go over to these scene launches. And when I click on one, you might see different things. But what we want to see is this. If you don't see that, click the main heading in your main track here, and then go click on one of your scene launch buttons, and it should come up. There we go. Okay, so we can say the tempo here is, you know, let's say we want to go down to 108. Okay, now you can see that this clip, the play button on this scene launch, turned this like teal color. That means that there's like tempo automation information in it. So this one, let's say, goes down to 104. Sure. Let's say this one is going to change our meter to 3/4. Now again, that's really just going to it's really just going to change the grid, but it can be valuable depending on what you're doing. You definitely want to do it if your music is actually in 3/4 and you want to launch on downbeats. You need to make sure that Live knows that. So now you can see, if you look at our global tempo, if I launch intro, it goes to 108. If I launch verse, it goes back to, well, it stays at 108 because it doesn't have any info there. This one drops down to 104. So it stays at 104 but switches to 3/4. So what we realized is that this one doesn't do anything. It doesn't have any tempo information in it. So if you start putting tempo and meter changes in one scene launch, you should get in the habit of putting it in all of them, just so that if you jump into one, it is set to the right tempo and meter. Because if we don't give it any information, it's just going to keep doing what the previous one was. So it's a good habit of, if you're going to change the tempo or meter in these scene launches, do it for all of them. Cool? Okay, couple more quick things. Okay, you may remember, we've looked at this before, where if I've been playing around in session view and I go back to arrangement view, this is all grayed out, right? That's intentional. That's by design. So I want to go over this one more time while we're here. What this means is that Live is saying, hey, I can only play session view or arrangement view at a time. And if you tell me to play something, I'm going to play session view. That's what it's saying. So it's giving me this orange button here. This orange button here is called back to arrangement. That means, hey, I'm done with session view. Let's listen to arrangement view. So if I click on it, everything comes back. Okay. Until I go over here again. And then I kind of can take control of stuff all over again. And now if I go back, these 2 tracks are grayed out because they're the only ones I touched. So these 2 tracks are not going to play from arrangement view. They're going to play from session view. So if I want to take those tracks back to arrangement view, I can do 2 things. I can hit back to arrangement and that's going to bring everything back. Or I can just click these little arrows here and that's going to bring them back. And now our back to arrangement button goes away because we're firmly in arrangement. So don't forget about that back to arrangement button. I can't tell you how many questions I get from people who are saying everything in my arrangement view is grayed out and I can't hear it. What's going on? What did I do wrong? And they start digging through their settings and trying to figure out what's going on. That's not the problem. It's just that orange button. Click that, go back to arrangement view. Live just wants to know what you want to listen to. That's all that's happening. Okay, now let's talk about recording to arrangement. Okay, let's say I'm working on session view. I've made something cool, but now I want to like capture it, right? I want to capture my performance of it in a way because I'm going to go through, I'm going to launch some scenes, I'm going to do some stuff, and I want everything I click to be recorded. So what you're going to do, what you're actually asking to do with that is, can I record what I do into the arrangement, right? And you super can. Let's do it. So I'm going to go over to the arrangement view. I'm going to start way out here because I don't want to record over that. Okay, so I'm going to put my cursor right there. Now I'm going to go back over to session view. I don't have to arm anything to record. I'm just going to hit record. Okay, now I'm going to start playing. Okay, well, that's ramping in. Let's hear that. Okay, maybe let's launch our verse scene. Oh, I have this track soloed. Let's unsolo that. Okay, let's launch our next scene. Yeah, I like this one actually. Next scene. Now maybe let's just launch this kick. And this. Stop that, launch that. Let's adjust the volume for this a little bit. Okay, and then let's stop. Okay, so let's just say I just recorded like a whole, 20-minute jam. Now I can go over to arrangement view and see I just recorded everything I did. I'm gonna hit back to arrangement view. This is everything that launched and when it launched. We can even look at when I started messing around with the volume back then. If I go to automation mode, there it is. That was me messing around with the volume. So everything recorded when I launched it. If I hit play on this, it's going to sound exactly like it's going to, exactly like it did when I was just playing it in session view. So this is called record to arrange. You don't have to do anything special. All you have to do is in session view, hit your global record button and then start going. And it's going to record it to arrangement view. This is actually really fashionable to do lately because what we see a lot happening is DJs, like big name DJs going on stage playing like a 2-hour set using session view and recording it to arrangement, right? And then they get off stage. They might go back to their hotel. They're going to tidy it up a little bit. Maybe they'll be like, oh, whoops, I accidentally started something there before I was ready. This is a little early. Let's stretch that out. Let's make sure this comes in right where I want it to. Maybe put a gap here because it sounds cool. So just maybe fix it a little bit. And then export this, post it to SoundCloud, literally an hour after their whole set. So that's how you do that. It's a pretty cool trick. Okay. That's enough Session View for now. Keep playing with it. Session View is like an instrument. It really requires practice. So keep it going. Keep working with it and practicing with it if you're interested in working that way. Now, if you want just something to practice with, I'll give you this session. There's nothing particularly brilliant in it, but you can have it. And maybe it'll be a starting point for you to do something with.